Thanks for joining us today. I'm Grant Campbell and I'm one of the partnership managers here at Lightning Reach. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. Everyone will be kept on mute. However, if you want to ask any questions throughout any of the sessions, there should be a Q&A box at the top of your Teams within the call. We'll take a look through all of these at the end and try and answer as many of them as time allows for at the end. We've got kind of 10-15 minutes left for questions, so we should get through a fair few of them. So in the way of introductions, as I said, I'm Grant Campbell. I'm one of the partnership managers here at Lightning Reach. I'll be kind of hosting the session and doing a bit of my own session towards the end. We're also joined by Natasha. Do you want to give a quick intro?
Sure, I'm Natasha Gilmore. I'm head of the Extra Help Unit at Citizens Advice Scotland. Morning, everyone.
And Sheena?
Morning, yeah. So I'm Sheena Watson and I work for Fife Council as a programme manager for our Tackling Poverty and Preventing Crisis Board.
And we're also joined by Kay.
Morning, I'm also part of Fife Council and I work within the Research and Insights team.
Perfect, thank you all. So in the way of a very kind of high level short agenda, we're going to start things off with Natasha. She's going to talk to us a bit about the great work her and her team are doing in the Extra Help Unit and how they are responding to crisis. We'll then pass over to Sheena and Kay from Fife Council to talk about how they've worked hard to prevent crisis and help residents build financial resilience. And then I'm going to take you through some of the insights and trends that we are seeing here at Lightning Reach of the sort of demographic of people who are seeing applying for help, what is the sort of main trends throughout that are, and how we kind of help with that. So over to you, Natasha.
Okay, thanks very much, Grant. And thank you to Lightning Reach for arranging this event today and giving me the opportunity to speak. I should warn you, actually, I might be waving my hands at any point during this webinar because the lights go off and I need to keep it moving. So if that happens, we're not asking anybody to start exercising or anything. We're just trying to keep the lights on here. So, but today I'll be talking about the Extra Help Unit, how we deliver our service, how we've adapted our service during crisis. This includes how we've supported staff, developed systems and partnerships to deliver better outcomes for people in vulnerable circumstances. So if we move on to the first slide, Grant. So as an introduction, the Extra Help Unit is a centre of excellence in supporting people and small businesses with energy complaints. We're a statutory and very much person-centred service and we provide support right across Great Britain. We've got statutory duties and powers to support people who are in vulnerable circumstances, who would really struggle to deal with the issue on their own, and that could be due to a range of issues. So it could be the urgency of the situation. So for example, those are at risk of disconnection, they're maybe getting threatened with debt follow-up, it could be faulty metering, and people need immediate support to help them stay on supply. At this point in time, the biggest area of our work is supporting people who do not have enough funds to top up the prepayment meter, and we're acting with immediacy to keep homes warm and keep families safe. Other areas that make people vulnerable is really their personal circumstances, so financial vulnerability, physical, mental health conditions, life-changing events such bereavement and divorce is also an area where people maybe don't normally need support, you know, on an everyday basis, but at certain times they're struggling to cope with issues in life. Complexity of the market also causes a lot of vulnerability. It could be back billing, metering mix-ups. And we really work in the premise that vulnerability is changeable. It's not tick box exercise. It can be permanent, long-term, short-term, and it can happen to any one of us, even on this call. So we really want to make sure that, you know, everything we do is about getting the right support to people when they need it most. So we're predominantly a referral-only service. In Scotland, our main referral partner is Advice Direct Scotland, and in England and Wales, it's the Citizens Advice Consumer Service, and that number is on the back of energy bills. So the Extra Help Unit is unique in the advice landscape. Energy suppliers are obligated to have arrangements in place to deal with our complaints. We have also got a duty to refer compliance concerns to Ofgem, so we're in a prime position really to monitor trends, supplier behaviour and performance across Great Britain. We're levy funded and our grant is managed by Scottish Government in Scotland and Department of Business and Trade in England and Wales. And we're based in Glasgow with around 44 caseworkers, and we've been managed by Citizens Advice Scotland for over 10 years. We've seen unprecedented change in the energy market over this time, and demand for our service has changed quite dramatically. So if we move on to the next slides, around how we deliver our service. So our approach is very much how do we achieve the best possible outcome, taking a person-centred approach. We advocate on behalf of a person. We're really here to deliver high quality complaint investigation. To do that, we need to engage with suppliers until resolution is reached or deadlock is reached. We achieve this really by understanding personal circumstances, understanding the detriment that's caused to that person. We consider supplier responsibilities, like are there areas of failure, like licence conditions, policy expectations, general customer service issues, and we operate a case ownership approach. So where possible, a caseworker deals with a case from start to finish, and that allows us to build up rapport and trust with that individual. And, you know, as we know, particularly where there's debt involved, there's a lot of fear about speaking about it, about seeking help. And it's important that we have a full understanding, and quite often people will share issues with us that they've maybe not shared with their energy supplier. And again, that allows us to get a more sustainable solution and make sure that people can access support that they need. So we've got linkages across the CAB network and debt referral pathways across Great Britain. We work collaboratively with partners and energy suppliers, and this is absolutely essential. We couldn't deal with our service without working in collaboration. We've also got partnerships set up with the Fuel Bank Foundation to access fuel vouchers. Here I go. To access fuel vouchers where supplier support is exhausted. And we're always looking at continual improvement. So we've got a quality assurance programme, and I'm delighted to say as well that we achieved the ISO Inclusive Service Kite Mark a couple of years ago. So we're really proud of that. We've been embracing technology, and I'll expand on that in a little bit. And our unique insight and engagement does help drive improvements across the industry. We work closely with Ofgem policy colleagues, and we hold quarterly supplier liaison meetings to share best practice. So central to the delivery of our staff is, of course, a great team. It can be a hard working environment. You're dealing daily with people who are distressed, upset, and quite dire circumstances. And it's important that we navigate these issues and support people in the best way that we can, while supporting our staff as well. So on to the next slide is just to provide you with an indicator of, I think it's the wrong way, Grant. I think that was backwards. Thank you. So just to show you, like in terms of demand. So March 2020, roughly, when COVID hit, and then that continued, there was spiraling energy prices. We started breaking records for all the wrong reasons. So Q4 was our busiest on record, Q4 22-23. We really struggled to cope with demands in our service. It was a real challenge. People were desperate for help, and they were struggling to afford essentials. So just to show you in terms of numbers, what did that mean? So 2019 to 20, we dealt with 15,000 cases a year. When we fast forwarded to 22 to 23, it was 40,000 cases. The following year was 40,000 cases. And at the height of this work, 84% of our work involved priority cases where we had to act urgently. Historically, our work was sort of around 25 to 30% of our work was priority work, where we had to act urgently to keep people on supply. And that's currently sitting around 70% of our work. So what did this mean for the extra help unit in terms of crisis, how we responded in effect? So, I mean, to be honest, it caused a lot of stress for our team, our managers. We ended up with a backlog in new cases. And on the next slide, I'm just going to work through some of the initiatives that we took in terms of how we responded to the crisis. So if we move on to the next slide, we first of all worked with our funders to increase our resource, and we know that takes time, but we also needed to go further than that. We looked at our KPIs, and we really focused them on prioritising outcomes and prioritising our person-centred service, almost above timescales. Timescales was about managing expectation. We wanted to make sure we were controlling our workload management for our team as well, and protecting the staff. So it was around making sure that we could flex if there was sudden increases. And also we had to get this balance right between actually dealing with urgent issues and dealing with a whole set of complex casework that wasn't urgent in terms of time critical, but still really important. And if we didn't do that, we would just continue working on all the priority issues coming in. So there was competing issues there. We ended up emailing suppliers more than calling them, again, just to save time. And we were really quite creative in terms of our work allocation, working patterns and rotas. And some other areas we looked at, I mean, certainly on staff, we did things a bit differently. We really communicated the work that we had done rather than the work that we hadn't done. We created a staff bulletin. We still do this every month to update people where we are. We created a staff survey every 6 months, and that helps us look at ways that we can better support our team. We get ideas, we create an action plan. So currently our team are saying that 91% have got a good sense of achievement in the work they do, and 80% have reported positive mental health within the workplace. So we're obviously delighted about that, given the nature of our work. In terms of service development, we created an additional support service, which was a really small add-on to our core service to help people access trust funds, grants, income maximisation, and it was really for the people that would struggle to do it on their own. And we've had some wonderful outcomes, some things like whether it's school uniforms, whether it's kettles, white goods, and just the broader income max, helping people understand the benefits that they're actually entitled to. We've been signposting it, and even if you look at what Lightning Reach is doing, so this is pretty new in the space, and again, it's helping us all in terms of advice and also how we deliver our advice, reach support to people in a much quicker way. We worked with suppliers such as British Gas. We worked with them. They were doing a you pay, we pay. It was like a payment matching scheme, and we ended up getting 11,000 for people. And again, that was through building up trust. People didn't want to go through that process with British Gas, but they would do it with us. In terms of development systems, we introduced a new case management system, a portal for suppliers to see where their cases were, and we also implemented AI to help us identify those most at risk of our service. And if we move to the next slide, this is one of the things I want to talk about around innovation. So if you imagine shutting your laptop down at night and you're worried, thinking, have I dealt with everything? Is there something there who, for example, their health and well-being is at risk because you've missed an email, you've not got to a task that you're maybe in the middle of, because that's what happens when you're super busy. So that really drove us to look at how we could innovate. And, when we're looking at crisis, we're looking at funding and partnerships. So we applied for funding through the Scottish Government CivTech programme, and we partnered with Health First to design and implement AI into our systems to help us better identify and prioritise those at risk. And when I say at risk, I mean in people where there's safeguarding concerns. How do we not miss these people, as well as the kind of wider work allocation issues. So the AI creates a prioritisation score, which has improved our work allocation practices. It improves support pathways for our team. Managers can see actually this person's got a high number of really urgent cases, and it's delivered stronger support for the people, importantly, that are using our service. The AI also creates risk alerts, which captures vulnerability factors such as ill health, age, children at the property. And again, that means when a caseworker's going into their case, they don't need to keep scanning through every single note. They can see at a glance, these are the factors that we need to be considering when we're looking at our case and outcomes. So having this type of technology in place not only makes our working days more efficient, but it literally can save lives. And at this point in time, 80% of our team feel more protected when it comes to safeguarding too. And that collaboration and product it's won awards, and it's been a finalist in a number of others. So it's been really valuable to our service. If we move on to the next slide, just to give you some insights on who's using our service and the situation that people are in. So we use Accent to deliver independent customer satisfaction research. And we also, that looks at the emotional impact of our service as well as our overall quality of service, but also looking at how people are feeling in terms of the energy market. So 61% currently are saying that they're struggling to pay for their energy bills without cutting back on essentials like food. And almost half have an income of less than 15,000 of those that are surveyed. Our Health First AI, so this is what I was just talking about before. That's telling us that 74% of people using our service have physical or mental health conditions. And another really useful indicator of the help first AI. So at this moment in time, say we deal with 26,000 cases a year, this is also telling us that across the year, there's been 440,000 timeline events on our system. So that's calls, cases, notes. And I think that's a really great indicator, because you're dealing with one case, but to get to an outcome on one case, there's a lot of engagement with suppliers, a lot of engagement with people that you're supporting in order to reach that. We use Language Line in terms of translation services. That's over 1,000 dialogues every year on that. And we've had over 320 safeguarding reviews across the year as well. So if we move on to the next slide, this is just around our customer satisfaction and our we talk about advice changing lives at Citizens Advice Scotland in terms of volumes and how we support people. So since we've been at the EHU or Citizens Advice Scotland over the past 10 years, 376,000 people have been supported. Over 40 million has been achieved in financial redress. In the past year alone, over 9 million has been achieved, and that equates to 293 financial gain per case, and 97% of our cases are being resolved with positive outcomes, and that's things like additional support credit. And when we're looking at that, is a prepayment meter suitable in terms of where people are self-disconnecting, billing is reviewed, is billing amended, refunds, metering work, getting national databases updated, and fuel vouchers plays a key role within that kind of crisis support and dealing with immediate issues. If we go on to the next slide, is more around our accent customer satisfaction. How do people feel about our service? This is why we're all here. It's about making sure that we're here supporting people in the right way. And the comments we get every month are, they're staggering. That's one of the great things I think about the role, and certainly my job, is you're helping people every single day, and the comments are always about taking a weight off people, taking pressure, taking stress off, and helping them find a way forward in other areas. At this point in time, we're looking at 96% feeling happy about the overall quality of service. And again, you're looking at the emotional impact of 81% feeling less stressed, 67% feeling their mental health's improved, and 89% feeling less alone. So that's just to give you a kind of a run through of the work we do. Thanks again to Lightning Reach for arranging this. I'm going to pass over to Kate and Sheena, and I'll be happy to take questions at the end, but in the meantime, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for passing over. That's great. Kay and I are just going to run through a bit of the journey that Fife Council has been since the end of COVID, which hit perfectly at the start of the cost of living crisis. So just to talk through what we did really as a partnership. It's not talking just for the local authority, but we have worked closely in partnership with third sector organisations in Fife to offer a crisis support package for residents, and then the whole time trying to shift more and more to get in earlier support for people to try and prevent people reaching crisis. So I'm going to give quite a lot of information, but what we really hope out of this is that you hear some of this that you think, well, I might like to sort of share something that we've done in our organisation, or find out more maybe after this short input, because we're really keen to network and learn from others. So I know that Grant's got the contact details at the end of the presentation, so I'll give so much information, but please get in contact if you want to find out more about any of it. The other thing I'd like people to take away from just running through sort of some of the work we've been doing is that, just to emphasise, definitely this is not just the local authority. Fife Council is actually the third largest local authority in Scotland. So, we're a big local authority, and we cover both rural and urban sort of geographies. But we work very, very strongly with the third sector. Also, probably just be touched on in a slide, but a lot of the foundations of the work we've done has been equipping frontline staff and volunteers to give first level advice giving. That's been a really, really important plank to what we've been doing. we're obviously the whole time trying to move to stronger, targeted and personalised support for people. And we've tried really hard, and we are trying really hard to be as innovative as possible and try different things. And we're in a culture where I'm quite fortunate within Fife Council that is encouraged and supported. And that has helped us work quite quickly with Lightning Reach, and we're seeing that partnership and that work as innovative, and we're hoping will support us to bring about change. So I won't speak that long to each slide though, Grant, but yeah, if you could click on that'd be great. So really it's what I said at the beginning, just to talk through what we put in place as soon as cost of living rises started to hit in Fife. So the decision was made that we would gather all the funds that we could that had been awarded through COVID, and also Scottish Government gave some money about recovery, and the administration and Fife Council also put money towards communities recovering. And that actually meant we've had quite large funds to work with. So 4 years ago, we had around £8 million, which reduced to about 4 million. And this year we've had 2 million in terms of support packages for people to support them with heating their homes, cost of living rises around food and cash support. So we've been in that position, and we've pulled together the money and then worked out the best way to get that support to people. If you could just move on, that'd be great. This is just a bit about the geography, where that bit that sticks out when you look at the map of Scotland, which you might have been doing quite a lot with the bad weather recently. And you'll see that we span, as I say, big rural areas as well as urban areas, and we are an ex-mining area, so southwest villages, and we've got quite a lot of ex-mining communities as well as on the other side fishing communities. Can you just move on? So we are, you saw the big area, and we administratively are decentralised, heavily decentralised. So we have 7 area committees, and those area committees have budgets, and they have decision-making powers, and they have anti-poverty money. So one of the challenges of my work has been this Tackling Poverty and Preventing Crisis Board, which was set up as part of the community planning structures, and it's a strategic board. But what has been really important is to make sure the decisions that are made there are making sense to those area committees, and the area committees have a way to feed up to the board. So one small example of how that's happened is that we had started to have a problem with school meal debt for those that were having to pay for school meals, and that was fed up, and then the board was able to make decisions to have a debt write-off for that. But this is the structure that we're operating in. If you could click forward, thanks, Grant. So this is me on this slide talking about that pooled resources. So that's the funding that we've had, and just going through the fact that it's a community-led responses really from the area committees, and they have poverty action groups, and just making sure that that is strong enough, and there definitely is that golden thread where we're getting that intelligence and understanding what's happening locally for people, but equally so that strategically decisions are made in order to support people directly. So one of those decisions has been around auto-enrolling people. So people are auto-enrolled we've got enough information to auto-enroll them for free school meals and for school clothing grants. So, that happens. So the whole time we're trying to increase and flex as much as possible to make sure everybody is getting what they're entitled to in terms of social security benefits. If you could just move on, that'd be great. So this is a sort of infographic, which is just a quick way to show the kind of support we've been giving to people, as well as sort of equipping frontline staff to make sure that they're able to talk to people about money and benefits, and that they feel confident in doing that, has been procuring a benefit checker. So we have a free benefit checker, which not only gives the standard information about whether you're entitled to benefits you're not claiming, but also goes down to a local level and lets signpost you to sort of Fife specific help. So that has been a really useful tool for us to try and make sure that people are using and checking. And you'll see up there, like this was last year, there were like 8,000 completed benefit checks. And underneath that, you'll see the our Fife Get Help website. So again, what we've done with partners is put all the information that you need about what support there is all in one website, which is has tiles which are easy to navigate. So we'll say things like, help with heating your home, that kind of information. You'll also see down there, it might be worth mentioning, we have a big holiday hunger programme. So you'll see there about the meals, and the branding might not mean anything to you. It's called Cafe Inc, but that's what it is. It's a big holiday hunger programme where we're providing free school meals to families through every school holiday. Thanks, Grant, if you could move on. So if you just skip that, that's just a screenshot of the website I was showing. So I'm going to pass on to Kay, who's going to talk a little bit about how we have targeted support. So we've tried to, get as much of that universal support out to people, but alongside that, we've been thinking the whole time about how we reach people who are on a low income, because we've always known there are about 30,000 people living on a low income, bubbling along that figure. And as I say, we've got 7 area committees. So if we do simple arithmetic, we're just thinking about the few thousand in every one of those areas that we're trying to reach and support early. So I'll stop there and let Kay come in for the next couple of slides.
Thanks. Yeah, so as Gina mentioned, one of the ways that we've been informing a preventative approach across Fife is using the Low Income Family Tracker. Don't know if anybody's heard of this before, but it's actually a dashboard that's been designed by Policy and Practice, who are a UK company. They do a lot of research on social policy. They've published quite a few articles online, and they've also created some tools to help local authorities across the UK just get an understanding of what the picture's like, where they are in relation to low income households, and how we can use that data to provide support. The Low Income Family Tracker sort of sits within the Research and Insight team, and it combines quite a few different data sets to give a holistic overview of low income households within Fife. And we've got different ways that we can sort of slice that data up to get an idea of what those low income households are like. We have used it to inform outreach work and campaign works, for example, pension credit campaign and council tax reduction. If you just skip on, Grant. So as I was saying, there's different ways that we can sort of slice the data up. So it gives us a general idea of the total low income households across Fife, but we can actually then have a deeper dive and find out how many are actually sitting within relative poverty or might be experiencing full or food poverty. We can also have a look at the financial resilience of these households. So the majority at the moment do seem to be coping, but it gives us an idea of those households that are due or might be at increased risk, who are sort of sitting on that struggling or at risk or in crisis financial resilience category. Sorry, move on, Grant, sorry. And also, it's a dashboard that we've had in place it's been a couple of years now, I think, Sheena.
Yep.
And so we can take sort of an overview and just track how the trends are changing over time with that data. If you move on. So just one quick example of how we've actually used it in a preventative way. We've worked to maximise the income of households who were showing as being eligible for pension credit but not yet claiming. So we ran a number of campaigns where we specifically identified those households and wrote out to them just to invite them to apply for a benefit check and see if they were actually missing out on pension credit. As a result of that campaign, 254 households were awarded pension credit, and over the life of the campaign and other benefits they were entitled to, they got, I think it was 1.2 million pension credit was awarded at the end of that. So yeah, it's definitely been worthwhile for that. We've also ran a campaign relating to council tax reduction, where we've been able to identify households who may have been in council tax arrears but not in receipt of council tax reduction. So again, it's just a case of identifying those households and writing out to them to invite them to make sure that they are claiming any benefits that they're entitled to. We've got some work coming up in the future looking specifically at financial resilience, so kind of honing down and seeing if there's any help we can be giving the households who are sitting at that cusp of being on crisis, just to again income, give them the income that they are entitled to. Let's move on, Grant. Oh, and then back to Sheena.
Oh, okay. So it's just to sort of wrap up what Kay was saying. You know, the purpose of us sort of using that tool is really just to see if we can get more meaningful support to people earlier, and just have more of a dignified approach, because you know, people are being left to go around and repeat their story and apply and come forward for support again and again. And so really by trying to sort of be proactive, we're really wanting to try and as I say, provide earlier support. The Scottish Government changed the benefit cap. I think again that's probably about 18 months, 2 years ago, and we were able to use something called the discretionary housing payment to mitigate the benefit cap. So because we had this tool, we were able to quickly identify the people that were going to be impacted, and that we could get that information and support out to them very quickly. So in the same way that councils unfortunately can be part of the problem for people who are maybe in debt to us or are repaying things, you know, I suppose this kind of balances it a bit, that we are trying to be proactive and try and support people quickly so they can get everything. This is just a quick example of the way that we work with these local committees. So it's just the whole time talking about these big, large scale bits of support, but often the things that mean most to people and make a big difference for people that are struggling on a low income is what's in their neighbourhood. So there was funding that went for a neighbourhood level, community-led sort of warm places initiative. So yeah, so it's just to say that we put money to that, and people could set that up. I think almost 100% of that was done with the third sector, and they were really agile and able to change what they usually did, rebrand and provide food and a warm place for people over the last few winters. Could you just move on, Grant? That'd be great. So yeah, maybe just carry on past that. That'd be great. Thank you. Yep, if you keep going. Yeah, so these are the local anti-poverty groups again that I've mentioned, and it's just obviously we've got these partnerships with NHS, DWP, as well as third sector, and that's where they're looking at the local funds that they've got. So each area's got some local funds that it can direct, as well as the council-wide funds. If you just move forward, thanks. Yep. So this is again just how it all stitches together when it's working well between the board, who I'm the programme manager for, across the communities to what's happening at that neighbourhood level. If you just skip ahead. Yeah, so really in terms of what we're quite excited about, we're working with Lightning Reach, so we're about to go live with Lightning Reach, but what we're looking to do is offer people a way to self-support. So we're encouraging and promoting as much as possible that people can use Lightning Reach as a way to get some financial resilience, and there's, I suppose, a two-pronged approach to that. We are trained a lot of our frontline support workers to know about it and to use Lightning Reach so that they can support people with that if they think that's a good fit. But also we're putting it out to the to Fife residents as a whole, and it's quite a dignified way for people to be able to get help. They're not having to repeat or tell their story to members of staff. They can just look for that support themselves. So yeah, we're really looking forward to working and piloting that. The support fund is something that we've got some funds that we have put together as a funding pot, hopefully not to overcomplicate the system, but really because we're trying to help people not repeatedly go back to the Scottish Welfare Fund for crisis, small £100 support, because we noticed a real pattern, which I think is the same across Scotland, but it's particularly in Fife, where people will go back for 3 or 4 amounts because they're living on a low income, and they're having to go back into the system and get it. So the support fund is to try and help those people maybe build a bit of financial resilience and give them a bit more money to really get out of the bit and to get back on track, and hopefully not have to go back and ask for small amounts of money. But the other part of it is there are a lot of people who are working who are just missing eligibility for the Scottish Welfare Fund, and particularly around household items and things they need when they're in the situation of setting up home again. We're able to fund from the support fund for people in that situation. That's only been running since September, but it's quickly ended up with the majority are for people who are, as I say, on a low income or have only partially been awarded what they need from the Scottish Welfare Fund in order to try and start and create a home. So we're putting together that support fund with Lightning Reach. So we are going to be administrating that fund through the use of Lightning Reach, and that gives us a bit of a win-win, because we'll be giving some support to people from the support fund, but additionally those people will be then able to get additional support through the Lightning Reach portal and matching into further support that they might be entitled to. You just move on, that'd be great. Thanks, Grant. Yeah, thank you. So we've touched on quite a few different things, and I'm sorry it's been a bit maybe at breakneck speed, but as I say, it's just an offer that I'm really keen to speak to people. We're really keen to keep learning. We're obviously trying new things, and we'd like to hear what other people have done. So thanks for the chance for talking a little bit about what we've been doing in Fife. Thanks, Grant.
Thank you, Sheena. Thanks very much for that. So I'm just going to kind of do the last speaker slot here, and then we'll go on to kind of questions and answers. What I want to talk to you a bit about is Lightning Reach has a solution and just a high level overview of what we offer. Sheena's touched on it a little bit there, but I'll talk to you a bit more about what we do, but also how we gather some data and what trends we are seeing from that data we collect from the users of the solution. So we currently work with local authorities across the UK, all the way down from Lambeth all the way up to Edinburgh and Fife in Scotland, along with energy providers, the third sector, housing associations, basically anyone who deals with residents in financial difficulty is our kind of sweet spot. Our mission really is to help as many people get financial help as we can and get them on the kind of right journey to become financially resilient, and not just be reactive to deal with crisis. What we offer is a single front door for support. So it's a mobile first solution, which users can access on their mobile or tablet or desktop. Our approach is prevention, resilience and crisis. Those are the kind of 3 areas where we kind of see ourselves fitting in and helping these residents. We've got over 2,500 support schemes on the platform. So this is kind of touches on what Sheena was just talking about. When someone applies for, let's say, Sheena's Fife support fund, if, for example, they weren't eligible for that for any reasons, they didn't quite meet the criteria, the Fife will then be able to refer them on to a number of different support schemes that will be available and they have been matched with. So a resident will complete a profile. We will use that profile to whittle out all of the non-applicable support schemes out of the 2,500 and get that down to a reasonable number of support schemes that are available to them that they can then go on to apply for. So just to kind of the overall landscape that we're seeing across the sector at the moment, 1 in 5 people in the UK are in poverty, and that kind of changes to 1 in 6 specifically for Scotland. There's around 60% of people in poverty who live in households where someone is employed. So I think that's really interesting. It's not just the kind of stereotypical kind of people who are unemployed are in financial help. People are employed, they are earning a wage, and they are still struggling just due to the cost of living crisis. Energy debt is ever increasing, so it's up by kind of 1.1 billion from a year ago. And the Scottish Government has issued £35.5 million to support households in the last financial year. So I think that kind of recognises that there is an issue here and that we do need to try and get funding and support out to residents, and it has to happen kind of quicker. What we see in our client data is a kind of theme of today, starting off with Natasha's session, is around home energy costs. So we see that about just under 65% of people are struggling with their home energy costs. About 44% are struggling to keep up with the council tax. And 34% of people are lacking basic essentials. And those basic essentials, we classify things like food, heating, household items, etc. So what's the sort of demographics that we see coming through the platform? You can see here that the age of people most in need tends to be between that kind of late 20s, 30s, 40s year olds. However, we have had people as young as 18 years old applying for help and support through the platform, and even as old as 103 were able to kind of self-serve the platform and find help, which is just quite astonishing to me. This probably isn't majorly surprising to most. However, I thought it was worth noting that 43% of users are living in social housing and 23% have private landlords. You can then see around 10% of users are homeowners, which isn't a massive surprise the way that the interest rates have been trending over the last 2 or 3 years, that people who have a mortgage are struggling to make ends meet. And then there's smaller segments of data there that we've also captured, things like other housing statuses, like if they're experiencing homelessness, if they're living rent-free or lodging, etc. So in terms of people's employment status, of all the people who have applied for help through Lightning Reach and are experiencing kind of financial hardship or needing support of some kind, over 32% of these people are employed, and around 30% of people are unable to work due to either disability, health conditions, or whatever that may be, that they're unable to work. But I think it's quite interesting, as I touched on earlier, 32% of people that apply are employed and in work. So this is about what sort of support are people coming to us and asking for. So you can see on the left-hand bar there, over 30% of people are applying for grants or financial help, which kind of indicates that they know that there is help and support out there. They know there is money out there to be had if they're eligible, and there is grants and funding available. But coming to Lightning Reach kind of shows that they're unsure where to find this. So they've either been referred to us or they've found us off their own back, where they know that they'll be able to kind of fill in a profile, see what's available to them. And also, quite interestingly, around 22% of users there are needing essentials items like food, clothing, and that sort of thing. So what is it people are really struggling with? Well, 64% of users who come to Lightning Reach there are struggling with home energy costs, and I've mentioned that a couple of times now, but I think it's really key with the way that the energy prices have been going, that it is key to see that this is what people are struggling with. Just under half of the users are struggling with rent or housing costs and council tax, and then almost 65% of people are struggling with loan repayments. So what I would take from this is that people are possibly struggling across all of these areas. However, they are managing to prioritise things such as rent, housing costs, and are having to sacrifice things like loan repayments just to get by month to month. So our solution for individuals, so how do we kind of get this help and support to individuals? So it's quite simple. It shows all of the support options that are available to each individual all in one place. So as I mentioned, there's over 2,500 support schemes on the platform. We then use the profile data. So we capture things like all the data we've just shown you, amongst other things as well. And we use that data to pull from the 2,500 support schemes and get that down to maybe kind of 25, 30 support schemes per person. And those ones relevant to them and their living circumstances, so that they are matched to ones that are relevant, and it's not just showing them everything and anything. Sheena mentioned this as well. We use a tell it once approach. So they would fill in their details, tell us their story, tell us what their circumstances are and why they need the help and what's got them in this position. And then that information will then be saved and pre-populated for each application for anything that they do, without the need for constant repetition of telling their story. And I think that kind of self-serve and tell it once approach really does kind of empower people to actually look for help and ask for help, rather than having to phone someone or sit in front of a caseworker and explain their situation multiple times. And And we also help build the resilience, which is kind of theme of today's webinar, by showing them everything all in one place. So it's not just what they've applied for that they'll see, they'll also see other things that they may be eligible for over and above that, to try and get them more financially stable. This means that someone's maybe not eligible for certain funding they've applied for. It's not just a case of turning them away and saying, no, you're not eligible, you need to go somewhere else. So they may apply for something like the Scottish Welfare Fund, be told they aren't eligible. However, they will be then directed to other support matches that they have, to try and find help and support elsewhere. And I think that leads us really nicely on to a really powerful and lovely case story we've recently captured from a chap called Carlos. I mean, this is just a great example of how we have helped and support various different people, but Carlos in particular was referred to us by the Royal British Legion and OVO Energy. He was forced to, he was a previous he's a veteran, or he previously worked in the military, and he was forced to vacate his military housing after leaving the RAF. All his savings that he had up until that point had to be used on emergency hotel accommodation, short-term lets, and his benefits were then reduced, leaving him with just £150 of income to cover him and his family's essential living costs. We, after Carlos filled in all his information, we were then able to match Carlos to support he didn't know that was available to him. So he didn't just receive monetary value. So he did actually get £500 in essential vouchers and £150 credit towards his energy. He was also able to obtain interview support, including a laptop, Wi-Fi dongle, and a suit to help him secure employment. And these are things that he just wouldn't know were available to him if it wasn't for Lightning Reach. And I think it's just a great story to show you might come to us for one thing, but you'll leave with other things that you weren't sure you were available for. So just to kind of wrap up today's session, if you'd like any more information from either myself, Natasha, Sheena or Kay, here's their details on screen just now. Please feel free to reach out, and we'll take kind of 5 or 10 minutes just now just to run through some questions. Let me just have a look and see what's came in. So one of the questions that we've had through was, will the slides be shared after the talk? Yes, of course, I can send the slides out to anyone that's attended. The webinar will also be uploaded to YouTube. So we'll share the link for the YouTube video once we've done that, and everyone can kind of view it there. Natasha, one of the questions that came in during your section was, do families have to go through the Citizen Advice Bureau, or can we as professionals refer them directly to yourselves?
So it's a really good question, and I'd be asking the same thing, I think, listening to the issue update. So it's the way we've got things set up, it's a statutory redress arrangement. So there's first tier, which is in Scotland, Advice Direct Scotland. And in England and Wales, it's the Citizen Advice Consumer Service. So what should happen is people and agencies should go through there for first year support. They can provide advice, they can signpost, they've got referral arrangements on to suppliers. But then if they're dealing with somebody who's extremely vulnerable or it's complex, they've got referral routes up to the issue. Is this the best way for advice agencies to access support? Probably not, to be honest. And it's one of the things that, you know, it's not how the extra help unit is set up, it's the wider statutory redress arrangements. And it's one of the things we've actually put in our business case for this new financial year around, we need to look at that. You know, how can people access us in the easiest possible way? So for example, if you are a CAB or if you're an advice agency that's, you know, there's a lot of agencies providing specialist energy advice, which is, you know, absolutely brilliant. Occasionally they might need additional support. Is it right they need to go through first tier to reach us? So again, it's not our blocker, if you like. It's the way the system's been set up, but we will be questioning, is that the right setup for people and advice agencies too? So thank you for raising that question.
Excellent. One more for you, Natasha, as well. Is there anything in the energy market you'd like to see to help people?
So more broadly, we've consistently been calling for social tariffs, so that there's basically a more accessible and affordable tariff that people can pay, because we all know and we've all heard today about the amount of debt in the energy market and people just can't afford their energy bills. It's not just about there needs to be ways basically that make energy more affordable. So social tariff is one. Also debt relief scheme that the Ofgem have published, but that will be a very fixed period of time where debt could be written off, but it needs to be more robust and needs to be more wider, because as we know, it's like, is it over 4 billion in the energy market? Like that in itself is not going to resolve issues either, and we're probably all aware of that. So basically better targeted support needs to be a lot bolder than we've been actually, and that requires work between governments, between regulators, energy suppliers as well.
Thank you. One for you guys at Fife, Sheena, Kate. Which benefit checker did you use? Someone's asking.
Just completely gone from my mind. What
Is it entitled to?
Yeah, it's entitled to. Yeah, we decided that because it was the most universal and people can self-support. Some of the others we thought were maybe closer to like what welfare rights workers would use. So, but I suppose the important bit is we've kind of made it bespoke to Fife. So, yeah, it's set up so it's got all the Fife support schemes attached to it as well. Thanks for that, Kate. It's a bit of a senior moment there.
And one of the questions that came in, I think, during my session at the end was, is this only available in Scotland? And the answer to that's no. Our support schemes that we have on the platform are across the whole of the UK. So we work with people down south in England. We work with people in Scotland as well, Wales, across the whole of the UK. So anyone who needs help or assistance can find that on our platform. I think we've covered just about all of the questions. So I just want to wrap up with firstly thanking our speakers. So Natasha, Sheena, Kay, thanks very much for doing that today. Muchly appreciated. I'm sure everyone found it just as useful as I did. And we will be following up after today's session with an email round to everyone just to kind of wrap up with the YouTube link that will be shared with the webinar. And yeah, you've got our details now. So if anyone wants any further information or anything, please feel to reach out. But again, thank you all for your attendance. And hopefully hear from you soon.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.